It's good to catch up. We have a lot to talk about, a lot, and we'll talk about Iowa. We've talked. I feel like everyone's talked about what's happened in Iowa the last 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks. But I want to get your
Yeah.
perspective on that in a brief fashion. But we were just chatting. What do you do for a living? Like, who is Skip? You've been on here a handful of times. I feel like people recognize the voice, have an idea what you kind of do, but what do you do?
So I've had every job known to man. I started at the bottom and I was everybody's like the worst jobs, me. I had to go do them. So I've worked in factories, I've swept floors, I've cleaned like disastrous apartments. My grandpa had these like slumlord apartments and I'd have to clean like disgusting stuff and so so I've had the worst jobs ever. And I've got, and that's good. I think it builds character for people to have really crummy jobs. And then clearly, I worked in sales, and I've worked in business, and I've owned little businesses. I've had my own little businesses where I whatever. I'd fix up cars and sell 5 to 10 cars a year, and then my little business has always been buying and selling farms.
Hmm.
Um, and that actually was not by design. I didn't start that business to do that. And then now I farm, and then I get CRP income. So ag income, CRP income. If I do sell a farm, usually I roll it back into my home farm. Occasionally, I'll sell a farm that I've had for a long time and maybe make some and take some out of it for this, that, or the other thing. And then occasionally I'll do business things, but I'm 45 and I'm still going, what do I do when I grow up? I
Hmm.
mean, I'm fine, I'm comfortable, but I'll never retire. I like doing things. So what I end up doing, I mean, I don't mind saying it right here. Like you and I have talked about different ideas and so forth.
Hmm.
And I always want to be careful in the hunting space. Like I don't want like a bunch of sponsors. I don't want um I the traditional means of making money in the hunting space. I don't want to have a hunting show. That's why I never videoed my hunts. It's not really what I want to do. I've always just wanted to provide information and help people, and generally, that I mean, it hasn't at all. It doesn't translate into money at all.
Hmm.
Um, and I thought a little bit about doing land consulting, but I'm like, it's just not the right fit for me. I mean, I might do it as a favor,
Hmm.
or donate a consultation because I can do it.
Yeah.
But still, I'm still a little bit like, hey, what else do I want to do? What do I want to take on? And that's evolving. I mean, and it's a nice situation to be in where I'm at now is like I can choose what I want to do and I can choose what I don't want to do. So, um, who knows? Doors open. If you want to hire me, uh, I'm always open to things. It's
Yeah.
just it's gotta make sense on both sides for, if I were to do something with somebody else or whatever I dive into. If maybe I start my own little business, but it's just got to be very tasteful. It's got to be a big need for it. It's got to be in my interest category, and yeah, I'm still figuring out what I'm going to do when I grow up.
Yeah. Well, you bring up an interesting point of like the outdoor model for a very long time has been get an audience, sell a bunch of ads, and sell them a bunch of the stuff that I'm sponsored with. And I think that's changed, I think, in some ways, and it's still there in a lot of ways too. But I think the average consumer is much more wise. And I think there's a lot of people that question things now. Everyone has a level of, I don't want to say curiosity, but maybe even a level of pessimism. Like, okay, so why is this person pushing this so hard? And what's their angle? And that's something that I think the internet has made us all more wise. Before it's like you had a TV, like the speed of information is unlike anything, and
No
I think
doubt.
that makes people a lot more wise.
Well, I mean, I think there's just been such an influx and buy this. Here's this gimmick. Here's some of them not gimmicks, but
Mhm.
all like all the content is just to buy a product instead of like the focus is like, hey, here's our sport. Here's how we make it better. Here's why it's so great and fun. It's like that was a maybe a side tangent. The main focus was buy all these things.
Mhm.
Look at this hunt, and the main reason is to see all these products, and people just get sick of that stuff.
Mhm.
So I think the pendulum swung because of money, because of, hey, we can just throw things at people and this is the best way to get them to gobble it up. It swung so far that way that I think it's starting to swing the other way, where people are like, I don't want all, give me something different, give me something new. And I can see that. And then, I mean, that's why when I talk about things like habitat and helping people and regulations and all these things, I know they resonate, but I'm also doing it out of in a genuine nature.
Mhm.
No, I'm not sitting there saying, yeah, I'm talking about all these things, but the real reason's right here. There's
Mhm.
no monetary reason whatsoever. Zero.
Yeah.
Zero motivations. And I think um, there's a lot of things in the market and in hunting that are going away from the money and towards back towards the sport, the resource, the purity, the peacefulness of it. All the reasons why people hunt is to get away from a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. What's something that, people would consider a gimmick that you bought and loved, and you're like, "Oh, dude, I thought this was garbage, but I bought it and I love it."
Everything. When I was okay, so from I started hunting at 14, bow hunting, and I'd say at 14 I was really, really hooked. Loved it. All the way till 25. We're talking so 10 years, a little over 10 years. Obsessed. I tried everything. So if there's a gimmick, so that would be call it like 1995 to 2005. If something came out,
You
I
bought it.
bought it. Everything.
But what was one thing you're like, "This is actually good?"
Oh, a lot of stuff.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of products that are great, but it's like, is that really the game changer that's going to get you a deer? No, not at all.
Like, was there a funky call that you lost eventually? You're like, "Oh my gosh, I'd love to buy another one of these," and they don't make them anymore. Like a product like that.
Not really. Um, I can't think of anything. I mean, I bought a lot of stuff, a gazillion things that um didn't do anything. Like I remember I was telling somebody the other day, I'm like, you never heard of Starlight Bloodhound or whatever? He's like, no, what is that? I can't even remember the name. I'm like, if you shoot a deer, you wait it till night and you spray this stuff and then
I
it
remember
lights
hearing
up the
about
blood.
that. Yeah.
I said
Did it
we
work?
bought like 20 bottles of that to track deer one time. That didn't stick around too long. I mean, we were going in 50 different directions. I'm like, I think it's glowing over here. So there's all these gimmicks that didn't work, and then there's stuff that's like they're staples of our industry now. Like this release, this type of release, or this type of sight, or whatever.
Mhm.
These arrows. You've got your arrows; they're
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Uh, so I would say, as products evolve and get better, um, you try a few things and then you stick with what you have. So I would just have to tell you the stuff I have now. Uh, that to me is very basic things that are actually extremely good products. So I don't know, lot of gimmicks out there. I think the list is more interesting on all the things I've ditched.
Yeah.
Like tried this. Oh my gosh, that was such a waste of money, waste of my time.
Yeah.
Just a million stupid things I've done.
Yeah, I think that's probably part of everyone's, like there's I mean, the outdoor industry is typically pretty slow moving, but there's some really skilled salespeople that have come in out of this industry over the years that you're like, "Oh, man, that makes a lot of sense. I gotta try that." And then you buy it,
Yeah, and I
and
mean, I
that's
was
it.
in sales for 10 or 15 years. I know how to sell things. I do. I get it. Um, I was good at it because I think I was very genuine, and I would say, "Hey, this isn't the right thing for you at certain times." So, um, but I get the sales part of it. Um, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, there's a lot of good products, and there's just a lot of junk too. So,
Yeah.
now here's the other. Oh, here's what I was going to mention. Um, I think a lot of guys during the off season they think that if they spend money, that's gonna set them up for the next year. I'm gonna buy all this gear, and they load up on all this gear, and all the gadgets and all these maybe effective things. They end up spending all this money on this stuff, and then they don't go put in the time hunting. And
Yeah.
actually, it's like, dude, all that gear means nothing if you're not out pounding it, if you're not out scouting and putting up doing the hard work. I think in a way, they substitute the gear. Well, I spent all this money on the stuff, whatever it
Mhm.
is, for the actual hunting and the scouting and the work and the time. And there is no substitute for that. That's my main point. There's no substitute for hunting hard, correctly, scouting, all the hard work. And everybody wants a substitute,
Mhm. You're
which
exactly
is
right.
why, we could go a million different directions here. Maybe we'll save this for later, but this is why everything in certain states is a corn pile, a cell camera, and a crossbow,
Yeah.
because I want the easy way. I'm
Yeah.
going to pay, I'm going to use these products, and that's going to result in the easiest situation.
Yeah.
It's natural. I think it's human nature, but we see that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Which, we just this will kinda lead into what we're talking about, but Chad and I did a podcast with the Honeybees with Dan Infalt, and we were talking about the trail camera ban in Iowa, and I brought up the point of, like, the the cell camera, the crossbow, and the bait pile as a trio is way too powerful.
Agree.
So, like, you'd almost have to take one of those away,
Yeah.
in theory,
So it's hard to say which things you take away. And
or
I
limit.
think as hunters we need to look at this differently, because everybody looks at it, well, I use this, I love this. And we have to recognize that we're all on an equal playing field. That's why regulations define quality of hunting. Okay, they just do. You can say, well, I'm going to be self-disciplined and I'm not going to shoot these things, and we need to get hunters to do this or do that. No, regulations will define it. All those things are great, but regulations will define it. So as long as we're all on the same playing field, that's the way we have to think of. And here's the mindset difference, very succinctly, that hunters need to make. We need to quit thinking about what is great for me, what's me, what benefits me, to what's best for the resource. And there's some things that I might like. I might like cell cams, right? But if somebody told me, and I'm not picking on cell cams, I'm not. But if somebody said, "Hey, the resource would be better off if we did this," or
Mhm.
pick anything. Maybe we shorten the seasons down. If somebody convinced me, hey, if we shorten the seasons down, or we went from $2 to $1, that's taken away from me. But it's also taken away from everybody. But it's not taking away necessarily from the people. It's giving back to the resource. It's saying, let's give them a little relief. Let's let the pendulum swing a little bit the other way, because all it is has been more killing, more things against the resources, longer seasons, more technology, more effective weapons. Let's bring it back the other way and give something towards the resource. So I'm okay with any of it. And everybody gets caught up in just the cell cam debate, in just this debate. Anything, anything. If we have to give back, just think about the resource, before you think about yourself,
Mhm.
because it is a state-owned resource that you share with everybody. Nobody owns these deer. Your state essentially owns them, and it's not just about us. So what's best for the resource? I cannot repeat that enough. That needs to be the emphasis, over money, over what's best for you. And that's the movement we're seeing in the hunting industry, big time, or in the hunting world.
Mhm. So, I'm gonna pull up a quick thing here. So there was a video that Cameron found, um, and shared it with me, and I wanted to bring this up, and I'm trying to find the here it is. Anyone listening, it'll be on the video version. So this is an interesting chart. And so basically the question was, did the introduction of cell cameras across the board majorly impact Iowa harvest numbers? So for anyone listening, basically 2015 they have a annotation that 2015 that's when that came out. And then you have the Tacticam Reveal Gen 1, which is kind of like the birth of mass deployment of cell cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me it didn't seem like there was this giant major influx of bucks killed and total deer killed. Now, obviously, there's a lot that goes into this, but I figured who else better to give us an idea or thoughts regarding this chart here.
Yeah, I don't think cell cams are a definitive factor in Iowa on deer kills. Do I think it helps target specific deer? Do I think some deer have been killed because of them? Of course I do, of course. But when you look back, so when's this data go to?
2006, the left side of the graph.
Okay, so our highest data point for deer harvest was about 205,000 deer killed in the state, 205 to 210,000. We're in half, and you go, okay, uh, your peak harvest, or 20 some years ago, was 210,000. Now we're at about half. We're a little over 100,000. That's half as many deer killed in this state each year. Half. And you say, what's the reasons for that? It's not cell cameras. Um, it's aggressive deer quotas in our state where the politicians overrid the DNR fundamentally. And the DNR maybe was complicit with some of it, but um, really the pendulum swung the other way. And the DNR allowed so many deer to be shot that it just wiped our herd out. And it's not proportionate across our state. So the upper 2/3 of our state almost were eradicated for deer. I mean, there's very few deer up there anymore. Like where guys are like, dude, I don't see any deer. I see a handful. So the areas where it used to be like a healthy amount of deer, a reasonable amount of deer, they just eradicated them. Very,
Mhm.
very few. So we're down half. And like I said, I just to make that succinct, you got your state of Iowa. The very lower tier might have only dropped 10, 15%, maybe 20% in some areas. The northern part of the state, 2/3, if not more, maybe dropped 75, 90%. It's just a blended average to say, hey, the harvest is cut in half. Well, some of these people were disproportionately just annihilated for deer. And 2/3 of the state, guys that want to go out and be like, dude, I love to hunt. I want to go see some deer. And seeing deer is part of the experience. It's what keeps the average guy going. If he doesn't see anything, a lot of times they quit. Um, so by definition, most of our state was hurt so badly that it is forcing some hunters out. And it's, we need to get some balance back. I'm not saying that we need to be up to carrying capacity or even half. We're not at probably 1/100th of carrying capacity in these regions. There just needs to be some balance so these people have deer to hunt, and there's an economic value. And I mean, eventually, if we keep going along this trend and a long enough time sustains where we don't have deer in these regions, we're just going to hemorrhage hunters because of that. And and then the economics of that is millions and millions of dollars to the state, from tag revenue to bow and arrows to guns to you name it. I mean, it's millions and millions of dollars when you deplete the resource and say there is no deer and people quit because of it, or other reasons they quit. I don't have access to land and they quit. That's a huge economic impact to a
Mhm.
state. So the state might say, hey, I don't care if you have a place to go. Do you? Do you care or don't you care? If you think about it, and these are politicians, and sometimes they don't think through this stuff, but if you do think about it, you better care if people have a place to go. And in Iowa, they do, and that's growing. But you better care because the economics of that are going to ripple through this state to the tune of probably tens to hundreds of millions of dollars when that many hunters quit. And when your deer harvest is cut in half as many, that is a huge economic input that will dwindle, that will impact the state and the revenue generation for the state, the job creations, all the things that ripple through. I mean, and just the experiences you're taking away from thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Um, it's incredibly impactful. And I'm not saying there can't be balance. I'm just saying it's gone one way.
Mhm.
Where it needs to be balanced, you say, hey, maybe the population got cut in half. Did that go a little too far? Probably did. It probably did. I'm not saying we bring it back to what it was, but let's have it where your average piece of ground at least has a reasonable population of deer just to hunt. Just like, hey, I saw a few deer. I saw a handful of deer. I saw a few bucks chasing. I don't think that's unreasonable to ask for that
Mhm.
for a reasonable quality experience. And that's what we've gotten away from in most of the state of Iowa. And and I'll just dive into something else real quick. People ask me all the time from out of state, how's Iowa doing? What's it like hunting there? And I go all over this state. People think I just hunt one farm. I mean, I like seeing different things. So I might go hunt a little satellite farm. I might realize there's a big buck over here. I own a farm 50 miles from this. I'm all over this state and I'm on buddies farms all the time. I mean, there is no doubt your average farm in Iowa, and I would call an average farm like for a landowner, like 80 to 160 acres. Um, 80 to 160 acre type farm, which is not huge. It's not small, but it's not huge. Uh, has really gone downhill badly, where guys are like the quality of my hunting experience compared to 10, 15, 20 years ago, it's hurting badly. And that really, it really does come down to two things. um, the aggressive quotas, where the DNR and the politicians rain tags on people. Well, when you have blocks with multiple landowners, um, half of them might say, I don't need to shoot any deer, but half of them say, I don't care, I'm going to shoot deer. They gave me tags. We get tags. And then the average farms just get a disproportionate amount of pressure and a disproportionate amount of deer shot. So, it really hurts those farms where the big farms, the guys that are like, hey, I own a giant chunk, 1,000 acres, 500, whatever, they say, I'm not shooting that many deer. I'll shoot some, and I don't know any that are completely irresponsible. There might be a few. It's the exception though, where they're
Mhm.
like, I'm not going to shoot any deer, but they're not going to do what the guys who don't think deeply about this, who aren't serious about it, they're not going to make those same mistakes. Like, let's just shoot them like rabbits and just shoot way too many. They monitor it and they understand deer populations. They say no, 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 no. So I would say the big farms in Iowa are actually still pretty darn good, which to be expected. I mean, a giant farm anywhere
Mhm.
in any state is probably a pretty good experience. That's the blessing of having a big farm. And people go, sometimes people even get a little bit jealous of that or get like, well, must be nice. Yeah, but these are millions and millions of dollars, and well, that's a rich man's for all these things, whatever. I hear that side of it too, but just realize that's a very small fraction of the farms out there. I mean, it's maybe 1% of the hunting you see where it's like a giant well managed farm. And considering Iowa is less than 8% timber, and we're actually trending fast towards 6%. I'd say we're at 7, probably trending towards 6. We're talking about a very small handful of farms that people kind of get jealous or think about or wish they had. And don't misunderstand. I mean, I love that too. And that when I was younger, I wanted to own big farms too. But um, it's just a tiny, tiny proportion of the farms that are of that top tier quality. The farms that are highlighted on YouTube,
That's the thing, everyone sees those and they
yeah,
don't see the
that's the
average
problem.
80. Yeah.
That's the problem. That is the problem. I don't have a problem with those farms. I don't have a problem with the people hunting them. They're my friends. I mean, I applaud them. Hey, you worked really, really hard. You have an awesome experience. What I do have a problem with is that these farms are highlighted all over YouTube. And all these people from all these other states say, look at this, another hunt in Iowa. Look at all the giants out there. That's how Iowa is. Look at, I got to go to Iowa. And that's marketing. I mean, it
Mhm.
is marketed to them. Look at all the giants. I mean, look at behind me. Look at there's a field with all these deer. Which one do I shoot? I get it. I get it. And they say, well, I got to hunt, come to Iowa. And here's what happens. Most of the state is not like that, to the tune of probably 99% of the state.
Sure.
99%. So all my buddies, friends of mine that come here and hunt, they're like, they've made a lot of them have made comments like, well, I'd shoot giants too if I lived in Iowa. Come on out. Come on. And I would say this is going on for a long time. It's definitely gotten worse though. in the last 10 to 15 years, since the beginning, Iowa ruts chew up and spit out so many people that draw their tags here. They go home with their tail tucked between their legs the vast majority of the time. It is way harder than anybody could imagine. And the folks who have done it, where if you're hunting on an average farm, average, a lot of times they just get eaten up and spitting out. And it's hard to even think back to what it's like during the rut. But I want you to just put yourself in that rut when you're starting to get a little burned out, you're starting to get a little frustrated. And this has been this way for 20 years, guys that come in with all these high
Oh,
expectations
yeah.
and they just go home with the tail between their legs. It chews them up. And I mean, that's good though, in a way, because that's hunting. This is not killing. It shouldn't be automatic. Um, and then a lot of people, uh, they just realize, whoa, Iowa's got a reputation, and what I've seen on YouTube doesn't match reality, and it doesn't.
Mhm.
It won't.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if you think it does. Come on,
Still
it'll
still the
chew
still the
you up
best
and
still
spit you out.
still the, arguably the best state though
It
for mature
is.
deer.
It is. And I'll tell you another one. I know a lot of people who come here and they buy 200 to 1,000 acres. If I buy 200 to 1,000 acres, I'm going to be shooting giants. And yes, I would say that gives you a clear advantage. It clearly puts you into a very unique small set of people. But the amount of people I know that have done that have owned it for 2 to 3 years and sold it is the vast majority. The
Mm.
vast majority come buy it. These are sometimes even residents. A lot of times are residents, and a lot of them are non-residents too. Either it doesn't matter, but they buy it. Hey, I paid good money for this, whatever, 500-acre farm. This is way harder than what I thought. This killing a giant is much harder than what I thought. I don't even have a giant to hunt. Why is my farm not producing what I expected? So their expectations, when reality hits a few years into it, that's why the majority of these farms come for sale.
Mm.
And my neighborhood, man, you live in some of the best area in the state. And I've got farms in what people would consider the best counties, whatever. Uh, the turnover on the ground is obscene. It's crazy. It's a realtor's dream. Because,
That's why there's 100 of them in the county you live.
well, think about it. Think about any realtor I know who's been around 5 to 10 years. Say they've been around for 10 years. Uh, there's a lot of farms that realtors have sold 3 and 4 times,
Yeah.
maybe five. Um, there's a lot of farms by me that come for sale every 2 to 3 years. I'd say three to four is probably the average. And so say it's 4 years. Well, a 12-year period goes by and that farm has sold 3 different times. Now, the only time it changes, a lot of times they sell it. Well, I can actually tell you what the number one reason they sell it. It doesn't meet expectations. So, and they're usually not fixing a lot of core fundamentals of the farm. They're not getting them right. They're doing exactly what the last guy did. And a lot of guys don't know how to fix it. Why they hire consultants, why they, you know, spend money on gimmicks and try and do all these things. And they can't get it right. So they end up selling. Um, they don't realize the workload of it. It's a big burden. And I would say one thing that has maybe changed significantly in the last 10 years. I mean, I talk to people buying and selling land all the time. I'm not a realtor, clearly, but it's the world I live in. I talk to them daily. The number one reason people sell land that I hear, right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm just stating the facts, is because of neighbors.
Mm.
Dude, I got these neighbors doing this. I got these neighbors that whatever, whatever. And I'm not saying they're right or the neighbors are wrong. I'm not saying that. The neighbor can do whatever they want, right?
Mhm.
But it's something along the lines of I'm just trying to get a few mature bucks, and I just like a couple around, and it'd be great if I had one to chase. And the neighbors will put so many people out there, or they'll lease it out, or they'll outfit hunts, or I go look at my border, and there's 5 tree stands on my border, and usually half of them are full of guys. Just the amount of pressure they put on the borders and the neighboring properties, especially when somebody buys a really good farm. You can say this with whitetails, you can say it with anything. If you build it, they will come, like the whitetails, giant bucks. But if you build it,
The neighbors will come.
yes, they do. And I'm not saying this to be controversial. I'm not knocking the neighbors, right? Because people cross that line. These are my deer. I own it. They can't. No, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
They want to bring 100 guys out there. It's their land. And I think that's where I just have the reasonable conversation where these guys are like, listen, dude, I'm not gonna try and change my neighbor. And they've done what I would do too. I'd be like, do you talk to them? Do you discuss these things? Yeah. Is there any changing them? Is there any balance? Nope. They sell their land. So when you're looking for a piece of ground for sale, especially in Iowa, realize that probably the majority of those farms are being sold because the guys are like, I give up, man.
Neighborhood
The
issues.
neighbor, it's neighbors, 100%. And if I could magically find the best situation, which is tough, especially with realtors, I'm gonna offend you, but
I'm
realtors say, "Oh no, the neighbors are great. It's the best farm in the world." That's what they always say. All the realtors say that. Oh, he's not selling because of the neighbors. He's
don't lump
selling
me in
because
this.
of fill in the blank. Um, if you could just find neighbors that were like-minded, just somewhat similar goals, you'd be fine.
Mhm.
And that is becoming increasingly difficult to do. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just stating it how I see it. I'm not really interjecting my opinion on that.
Mhm.
And it is kind of unfortunate where I do interject my opinion that neighbors can't be like, listen, let's work something out here. Maybe I don't need to shoot 10 bucks off of my 160. Maybe I don't need to bring 5, 10, 15 guys in to hunt my, you know, little farm and shoot everything, and I would tell anybody, yeah, have a respectful conversation with your neighbor and try and work with them and try and get on the same page. Because you guys got to get along, and it's their land. But absolutely, there's situations where I'm like, you know, I don't try and change my neighbors. I mean, I might try and work with them reasonably, but if I couldn't, if I said every year that neighbor is going to do all these things, I would sell the ground too. I'd be like, I got too expensive of an asset, um, and I'm just going to move on.
Mhm.
Absolutely, I'd sell, and that's what's going on all over the country.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely a whitetail phenomenon. But you grew up hunting a lot of public ground, and you've hunted,
Yes.
and so just real quick, what's your take on the not leaving cameras on public in Iowa overnight? Do you think that because obviously some of that trend has happened further west? Kansas did it last year or 2 years ago. Now Iowa's done it, and do you think it just keeps going, east?
So everybody wants to get caught on the actual debate on the cameras, and think past that. Think a little deeper. All this is a reaction it's a reaction of the government and of the people of saying things have gotten way too far out of control. And the West usually is the pioneer at
Hmm.
protecting the resource. So what you see happen out west, where they're protective of the resource, um, they're more restrictive. I mean, the DNR officers out there, the stuff I hear on how aggressive they are at law violations is insane. Like, I'm like, I wish we had that here.
Hmm.
Um, so they're generally the pioneers of all this. Don't get caught up in why is it the camera? What about why you like using this camera? No, it's a reaction. It's a reaction to the bigger picture of all this technology being thrown in the sport. And specifically on public land, there's enough outcry, especially in Iowa and other places too, where people say, hey, Iowa, We have very little public land. We're about last in the country. We're either 49th or 50th in the country for public land. And it keeps getting worse. It's not getting better, it's worse. So the pendulum again is swinging towards the direction of worse. And the state, the government, the DNR, the people are saying, what can we do to get it to swing the other way? Do I think is trail cameras the answer? I don't know. But if they say, hey, we're just going to try these things out, and I think that's what they're doing, really. I think they're saying it's gotten too out of hand. There's too many guys using too much technology, and it's degrading the public lands. It's degrading the resource. We have to dial it back some. And the other thing, so just think, just understand, it's a reaction. It's a reaction to all the abilities we have and technologies we have that make us more effective killers. And to the point where we've driven our deer harvest in half, you know, we're very effective. So maybe we need to have the pendulum swing the other way. And what people also don't understand, they're like, well, you're taking something away, right? You're whatever it is, whatever, not just trail cameras, but you're taking something away. What they have to realize is that 20 years ago, lots of these things that are in place now, whether it's seasons, weapons, technologies, down the list, did not exist. So we've added things year after year. It's the frog in boiling water analogy. We've added all these things while people weren't paying attention. They didn't realize, oh yeah, this was added. You know, these seasons were added. Oh, new weapons to this season. All this additional things have been added while people didn't pay attention. Now that's just more things. Hey, we've got all these things in our favor, and now you want to take some of them away?
Mm.
Well, for the greater good, yeah. So, where I'll interject my opinion there is I could care less about the trail camera debate. I could care less one way or the other. But when it comes to somebody saying, listen, we want to remove XYZ, I say, why? And if they explain it to me in a way that says it's going to benefit the resource, it's going to make the quality of the herd better, it's going to set up the future for future hunters in a better light where they're going to have more opportunities. Maybe the deer population can have a little relief in Iowa. Maybe a few more deer will reach maturity. Maybe things will be a little more balanced. Maybe the public land won't be destroyed and pummeled by an army of guides. I'd say, okay, I'm for it then. And if they ask me, can I take something away from you? Maybe I can shoot $3 right now. And with party hunting, because I'm a resident, I can still do it. I could shoot $50. If
Uh-huh.
they said to me, hey, could we take one of your tags away? Oh, you're taking something away from me? This is all about me. You can't take things away from me. But in reality, what we should be doing is this is the way I think, and I'm not saying everybody else does, and I'll make this point before I go on. Anything I say during this whole podcast, nobody's going to agree with all this, right?
Mhm.
No hunters agree on 100% of things. And there's going to be certain things where people are like, he's way off base and I have this to interject and he's missing this point. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I might disagree with myself 2 weeks from now as I'm constantly changing my thinking. But um, so if they said to me, we want to take something away from you, you can shoot $3. We're going to take one of your buck tags away. I can only shoot $2. Yeah, but because of that it's the same rules for everybody. The herd will be better off. More ground will not be tied up because more hunters will be tagged out earlier. It'll open up spots for other hunters. It'll probably increase the quality of the herd. Um, and because you're not shooting that extra buck, maybe it runs by somebody else and they tag out on it. A kid, another hunter. It's not just about me. So I would be like, take it away. Absolutely. You want the government to take things away from you? Yes, because regulations define our resource. Regulations define the quality. Regulations will define how good a state is or how bad it is. And guess what? Most states have gone in the wrong direction. The
Mhm.
wrong direction. And I'm an optimist. I'm not a pessimist. Um, but I'm a realist too. And things have gone in the wrong direction. So, you know, me, I would absolutely before taking away a tag from me, going from I can shoot three as a landowner down to two. And somebody goes, oh, you can only shoot $2, and then how many doe tags can you get? 20, 30, 50, 100. Now, what am I realistically going to shoot? Could I travel around and shoot half a dozen does pretty easily in a short order? Yeah. So you can only shoot 2 bucks and 6 does. How are you going to survive on that? Yeah, I know. I might have to start picking up roadkill. I mean, how isn't that enough for anybody? It's enough. And guess
Uh-huh.
what? We live in small states. We do. It's probably for any person here, it's probably a 2 hour drive or less, maybe three, four, to go to another state. If you really want to shoot another buck, go to another state and do it. And most states, if you need meat, there usually is regions of the state where you can shoot multiple does. So even if they said, hey, you can shoot 3 bucks, and I'm going to go to extreme, it's not going to happen. I kind of would like it to happen, but you can shoot 3 bucks. We're going to take you down to 1 buck, and you can shoot 1 buck and shoot. I could shoot 10 does, and then I can eat roadkill. Uh, I think I could survive. I really do. And if I wanted to shoot another buck, I'll go to Kansas. I could go to Missouri. Will never go there, and I can't hunt there, or any other state. But I won't go to a state that's just degraded and ruined. But if I want to shoot another buck, there's plenty of opportunities for it.
Mhm.
So again, the mindset in hunting: get away from what's just about me, and let's shift back to what's best for the resource. Not governments taking things away from me. Regulations and limitations, will make things great. And it's the same thing when you go fishing. If you could take every fish out of the 2 acre pond that you fish and everybody did the same thing, no limit. Or there's a 20 bass limit on this, and you can take them down to 8 inches. They're ruined.
Mhm.
Same thing happens with deer hunting. Unregulated madness.
But what about a lot of this? So, like, relying on the state to make the positive change. Like you're saying, we have to be regulated to protect the resource. But unfortunately, a lot of regulations have been to exploit the resource. I'm sitting here
Yeah.
in Illinois right now, and so it's like a lot of the regulations have been added late season muzzle, like all these different things that have made it um, to the point where it doesn't feel like they are protecting the resource. Because I think my biggest fuss with all of this is like, what is the basis of the thought process for these DNR commissions to like what are they trying to accomplish with whatever regulation? And if they had like, okay, here's the law and here's the summary of why we did it. I'd like that.
This is very easy to summarize. Am I getting into every nitty-gritty detail here? No, I'm not. But it's very easy to summarize. In Illinois and in any state, the last 30 years, the resource has kind of grown in population. The popularity of hunting has grown. The amount of hunters traveling there has grown exponentially, non-residents to Illinois. So there's been a game of increased deer numbers, people traveling there where they're like, let's just rake in the money, rake it in. And guys are like, I'm outfitting on my ground, I'm leasing it. I got 50 or $100 to lease my farm out to Jake to hunt deer. He is a sucker, but take all the money in. So the whole game has just been about money. It's been about money, and it's been about, hey, these deer numbers are going up. Let's kill all the deer. How do we effectively kill all the deer? And the pendulum swung too far the other way, though. All of a sudden, you look at Illinois, which is the poster child for all this, of selling out the resource, of
Mhm.
exploiting the resource for the almighty dollar. And you go, hey, guys, we've constantly chased the money. We've constantly chased killing more deer. Listen to the insurance companies, listen to the outfitters on the crazy amount of tags. And we listen to the farmers that are getting $50 to $100 for leasing their land for hunting, which is crazy. And I'm insulting a lot of viewers right now, and I apologize, but uh, and finally it gets to the point where like the quality has gone downhill drastically. And I watched Illinois. The government doesn't respond quickly, right? They
Mhm.
don't realize like there's not as many mature bucks. Government's like, what's a mature buck? I don't understand this stuff. Most politicians have no clue about this stuff. I watched it in 5 years go down the tubes, just like ruined. Why? Why was it ruined? Because of money. because all the non-residents came there and shot everything. And the last day, everybody's like, "Well, I shot this little 6 point. I paid $300 for my tag. I got to kill something." Really? And I mean, it just became. It's just that's the definition of selling out the resource, of exploiting the resource. And the pendulum swung too far in Illinois, where it swung so far because of money and killing that, I mean, guys like me that are the serious, it's you can't just cater to the most serious of hunters, but the most serious of hunters, you definitely need to understand what they're doing and why they're doing it.
They spend the most amount
It's
of money too and do the most
yeah,
with the
yeah. I
resource.
mean, they should have a voice. The people that are like, I want to chase a mature deer. And when there isn't any, or they're so rare, I will go somewhere else. And you have to at least take their point of view into consideration. It needs to be part of the equation. And guys like me that went to Illinois that watched it go down so badly. I mean, I remember taking the vehicle around to every one of the farms and ripping down every one of my tree stands, taking them all down. I said, I'm never going back to Illinois. It got that bad. I will never go back there. I mean, I'm boycotting it. And
So do you think, okay, so you're mentioning like there's a continuum where it goes back and forth. So do you think that with Iowa making some of these changes that other states will be like, what's going on over there? Illinois is going to make a change within the next 5 years. Do you think that happens even without intervention of someone, without a clone of you in Illinois and Springfield or Ohio at Columbus,
you
wherever?
need intervention. So you need people speaking out, and there's been a part of the problem. Is so few people are willing to speak out. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to offend somebody. I don't want to say something that could hurt somebody's feelings. Whatever. I mean, but that's really what they think, as silly as it is. Nobody wants to speak out. Nobody wants to put their neck on the line. Without intervention, without people understanding these issues and understanding both sides and saying, we just want balance. I'm not saying like every farm needs to be full of 200-inch deer, you know? It's not like that, but having some mature deer, it has to be people that, citizens of that state that organize and get a lobbyist or form a group or, get more involved. And some of the hunting celebrities need to speak up. They
What?
do,
What?
especially if
What?
you live in that state.
Yeah. What? Why? So I'm gonna call the mainstream hunting industry is from Iowa. You guys are the mainstream media for whitetails,
For sure.
and with why don't more, I'll just call them what they are, celebrities or influencers of our space, why are they so quiet?
Good question. So I talked to probably all of them, 75% of them, just because we just know each other. It's small. It's this very small world.
Yeah.
They're all regular dudes. It's just some of them happen to have a YouTube hunting show or whatever. And it's kind of like somebody who, starts out with nothing, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, they're a billionaire and they live in this gated community and they just shut it all off. I don't care what goes on out there. I'm set. I live in this little gated community and I actually don't see all the garbage happening. I don't see it. So why do I have to pay attention to why would I speak up against like crime or drugs or illegal immigration or anything? I don't care. And that's what happens with them is they're sitting there going, yeah, I hear you guys. I got a great farm though. I got a huge farm. I got tons of huge farms. Why would I care? And partially to their credit, they don't see it. I mean, what do you mean the hunting's gotten worse? I don't see it. I have a huge farm. I see tons of deer. So they just get detuned from it. So what happens is so that part I don't blame them for. They sit there on their great farms with their great experiences and they don't quite realize some of the other problems going on. At the same time, now, I would say in the last few years, you can't avoid it. And enough of them, because I talked to them, they all know, like, people are coming for Iowa. And a lot of them have finally, and this is probably a good thing, experienced pain. Where a lot of these guys with huge farms, I talked to them like, I don't have a deer I want to shoot this year. Because everybody's like, well, if I owned that giant farm over there and I could shoot, they're like, I don't have a giant to shoot. My farm is really hurting. The neighbors are doing this, whatever. Um, so they're experiencing some pain. So I know for a fact that a lot of them are going, whoa, time to start talking about this. And then there's a facet of that, a portion of that that's like, well, I still have my great farm, gravy trains running in. I got all these sponsors coming in. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to rock the boat at all, so I'm not going to say anything. Those are the people I personally have a problem with. And the reason I have a problem with that group, and I talk to some of those people, and some of them, the ones I don't talk to. That's probably why they don't want to talk to me, because they know I'll be like, listen, and here's my position. You have made your brand, your company, your living off this state. Not just off this state, but off the state's resource, our public resource, the deer that grow big, and the regulations in Iowa that have made the best hunting in the country, with a couple other exceptions that exist. That's how you have gotten all of your success. And for you not to step up and speak up for it and defend our resource, and when there's people that want to exploit our resource and ruin it, even if it won't impact you, even if it's just going to impact the kids that are coming to this sport saying, hey, it sucks, it got ruined. I think they have a duty to speak up for it. More of them are speaking up for it. Um, and I think a little bit, some of these folks, they need to look in the mirror too and say, we created this huge demand to come to Iowa. It's a 6-year draw to hunt here. We're responsible for that.
Hmm.
We've been the prime marketers of the state. So good, bad, or indifferent, that's fine. It is what it is. But you guys now, because of that, you've made your living here, you've had all your success, and the state has given you blessing upon blessing with hunting and just everything in the state. It's your duty to defend it, to speak up, and to make sure that you leave the resource better off than what you found it, or as good. And where I get a little frustrated, a lot frustrated, is it's getting worse. So it's our duty to make it better. And the optimist in me does believe that it will get better. I do actually believe it will get better. And most people are like, nah, it's going in the wrong direction. It's going to get ruined. And there's some things that could cause it to get ruined, but I do think it'll get better. And, I would say 75% of the hunting celebrities that I talk to are like, absolutely. I want to speak up. I'm on your side. How can I help? What can I do? And they're starting to get more vocal. You're going to hear some more of them get more vocal, be more involved. Uh, and then the ones that don't, I don't know, just pay attention to it. If
Uh,
they're not speaking up and they're not defending the resource that has allowed them to make their living and allowed them to be successful, allowed them to shoot these great big bucks that they post on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. I mean, think about it a little bit, you know,
let
ask
me
them
let me ask
respectfully.
Yeah, let me ask you this. So there's this debate of like we need more hunters, but we have a very limited resource. Where do you fall on that?
I think my desire for more hunters or less hunters is irrelevant. It's kind of like I want the prices of these things to be this or that. The market will dictate that. And what the market is dictating with more or less hunters, if you have a poor quality experience, you will have less hunters. If you have a less balanced age class and a less quality herd, you will have less hunters. If you don't have access to quality land, you will have less hunters. Now, the right answer is you've got all these farms across the country, just thousands and thousands of great farms, quote unquote great farms. It could be great farms that are just ruined every year. I mean, crazy. Go drive along through any of the Midwest on any state, and you're like, that farm looks amazing. That probably sucks. Um, so if the whole system were to get better, if the regulations were to improve, it would create a better quality experience for everybody. It would lift all tides, would lift all ships, and everybody would have a better experience. And people wouldn't have to say, "I wish there was less hunters," because it would just be good for everybody. So it's not a zero sum game,
Mm,
and people think it is. They say There's this many mature bucks out there right now, and there is. The amount of mature bucks out there right now is very, very minuscule. It's very tiny. And people are saying, yeah, the tiny, tiny little resource of mature bucks, I want less people to hunt because then that's less competition for this tiny portion of mature bucks. And what I'm saying in very simplistic terms is we need to make it so there's more mature bucks. And again,
Hmm.
not 200s everywhere. Not every farm has 50 mature bucks running around, but like there's a few mature bucks in every neighborhood, just a few. And that's not, I don't think that's too much to ask and to say, well, but does biology say that? Yeah, it does. It says it's better. A balanced age structure is better. Shooting down all the year and a half old bucks or all the two and a halfs every year, with rifles during the rut, that's not good biology. That's not good science. There's no facts behind that argument other than, well, I want that though. It's always been this way. It's always traditionally been this way. It's always traditionally sucked. So it must suck forever going forward. There's no real merits to that argument.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a really good way to look at it. Of if the resource is better, it's naturally going to recruit more hunters, and if the regulations make it challenging enough to where
Here's the
immature deer are getting
reality.
mowed down.
Here's the reality. I want less hunters. Guess what? You're getting it. You all are getting it. Everybody on here, and I've been part of this group too. I've been pissed off before. People ruin my hunts. I'm like, wish there was less hunters. I've said it. I'm part of the problem. I'm part of every one of these problems. When I say, it's not great that everybody's leasing everything out in Illinois. Have I leased stuff out? Yep. So I'm a hypocrite. I am. We're all hypocrites, okay? We're all part of the problem. But when I say I want less hunters, guess what? You're getting it. You're getting it. Now, people go, but doesn't seem like it. Yeah, it doesn't. You want to know why? It's because the people who say, government, regulations, all you people with all these opinions, you're creating a disastrous system. You're degrading the resource. And that's great. You want to kill everything and have a season, a third of the year long. And if it's brown, it's down. Trophies in the eye of the beholder. You guys think that all you want. That's fine. I'm going to go buy because I'm wealthy. If some guy with some money, or I'm just capable, I'm going to buy my piece of land where all you guys with your opinions can't impact me. And I'm going to insulate myself from it. So they push all these people off the ground, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's a reaction to what's going on in the system, why these people are doing that. And when they do that, all these other people are displaced. So they go on to the 80 acres where the guy's like, yeah, you can hunt there. So can everybody else. Or the public land or whatever, all these average pieces. And you're like, there's a million guys here. There's more hunters than ever. There actually isn't. There's less hunters in almost every state. And that number is going down. We are losing hunters. It's just, it seems like there's more because they're being displaced onto the average parcels. And those parcels are being um, disproportionately packed with people and degraded even at a far higher pace. And it's just a nasty downward spiral. Um, and I don't like that. I don't like that. You got to have big money to buy these giant parcels, and that's where the only good quality hunting is. That's not a good model. Again,
No.
in Iowa 20 years ago, when you went to the average parcel, I hunted a ton of 40 acres. My first farm was 80 acres. There was mature bucks there every year. If you went there today, I guarantee you there would not be the amount of mature bucks there as 20 years ago. Every average farm in Iowa had mature bucks. Even in the farm belt north of here, you could find giant bucks on every parcel. It's not like they're everywhere, but there was a few. So everybody said, hey, it's good everywhere. And everybody could be somewhat happy. Well, as we've degraded our quality, which we have, and there's less mature bucks, which there are, um, guys are going, whoa, I got to buy a big piece of land if I want to just have any hope of having hunting be like what it used to be. And that's the position people are stuck in now. You got to
Yeah.
have a giant piece of ground if you want a quality experience. And I don't fault the people for doing it, but I fault the process and what got us there. And we need to get back to at least lifting up the whole system so it's a good quality experience for everybody, a reasonable quality experience for everybody.
Mhm. Isn't it funny that a lot of hunting Like when I went to Iowa this past year, I felt like I was hunting like in the good old days. And like you mentioned, like everyone is chasing to what it was like before and whatever besides for you in Michigan. But like even when you're in Iowa, you're imagining like, oh, do you remember what it was like? Do you remember what it was like? And I think that may be a flaw of all of us rather than like, how do we get it back to where it was where we remember versus like to your point, insulating yourself and being self-focused. Because we all are.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people are striving for a quality experience and they're sparing no expense. I mean, me driving into Kansas now, and I've hunted Kansas for 25 years, and buying a farm in Kansas. Um, wait. You live in Iowa and you can shoot 3 bucks, and I never do. Why would I drive to Kansas? Part of that I don't quite know the answer to, but why wouldn't you just buy more Iowa ground? And that's a whole nother topic. But you know, all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I'm in the car for 5 6 hours. What I don't like doing that, especially at 45. And I can't imagine these guys like in Wisconsin or Minnesota that live in deer paradise with timber mixed with ag everywhere,
Yeah,
lots of deer. Well, the lower part of the state,
sure.
and they could have lots of deer. And granted, they got problems way up north, wolves and tough winters, stuff like that. But they're driving through premium habitat, driving 10 hours to come hunt different states when they have more habitat, more deer, and more potential than the states they're driving to. Do I really think these guys want to drive 10 hours in a car and
No
spend
way.
$550 on a deer tag? No, I don't. They don't want to do it. They're doing it because their state is ruined. And they drive through better habitat to come here to go hunt here because we have older deer. That's it.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
deer are not different. They're not different genetically. Uh, they just get to a different age class. That's it. So all these people who flee their broken states and come to Iowa and Kansas and Illinois and Ohio and Kentucky and Indiana. Um, they're coming here because of older deer. All these places, and as all these states get worse, all these states are going to have an influx of more people coming there. And states like Ohio or Missouri, which I wouldn't even hunt Missouri to begin with, but if I'm a guy from Pennsylvania or Michigan and I look at Missouri, I'd say, to me, Missouri stinks. But to those guys, they're saying it's so much better than what I hunt. So they go there. And Missouri people, I don't know how they can't see this coming. Like, guys, you have armies coming to your state, Kansas, all these states, armies of people that are fleeing their broken states to come lock up ground, lease it out, set up with outfitters, pay huge lease prices per acre. How aren't these states realizing what's coming? And the residents, the people that are on the ground every day that are serious, they see it. They go, oh my gosh, I see the handwriting on the wall. I'm going to have nowhere to go. And a lot of them are already there. They're like,
Mhm.
dude, it's all non-residents around me. They've locked everything up. How's that good for anything? The real answer is it's a market. It's a free market. And you guys allowed this. With your laws, everybody can come here, get guaranteed tags. And if you own this amount of acreage, you can get land. You can get a tag. You guys created this monster. It's your job to fix it. Now, on the other side of that, I would say to the people fleeing these places, please fix your own state. It's time. They have vast potential, and they're ruined, absolutely destroyed. And I'm tired of hearing the argument, it's always sucks, so it's always gotta suck. No, fix your own state. It's time. And there's enough people, I hear it all the time. I mean, I hear hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of guys that are like, Missouri just would be awesome if we got the rifle out of the rut.
Yeah,
Everybody
everyone
knows
says it.
this.
Everyone says everything
Everybody
about their
knows
state.
it.
Yeah,
It's so obvious, so do it.
yeah.
Oh, people won't do that. 20 years ago, they wouldn't. But now there's a new generation that is, making a lot of these decisions. And has your resource not gotten degraded badly enough? And, you know, well, if we move the gun season out, we couldn't shoot does. Really? Really? We have no problem shooting as many does as we want here in Iowa.
Mhm.
And and even I won't get into the weeds here, but you need to hunt. So you need to hunt does with a rifle during the rut to control the doe numbers. No, you don't. Does are hiding during the rut. That's when I see the least amount of does. Period. Is during the rut. They're hiding from the bucks, and now they're hiding from an army with rifles. It's very ineffective to kill does. So if that's the overriding argument, because you want to change this, and they always find some silly reason. Well, we couldn't kill enough does. Sure, you could. You could kill far more does if you moved that gun season because it wouldn't be hiding.
Hmm.
There's all these little things that are so obvious, but you're dealing with a broken system, and that's your duty. It's not easy, but you need to fix your broken system. So all these other states, fix your broken systems.
Or move to Iowa. I'm just kidding. I mean,
Think about it. The
yeah,
Iowa's the influx of people moving to Iowa.
there's a lot,
It's massive.
a
And
lot.
my good friends love them to death that are non-residents that complain about Iowa. I'm like, listen, guys, they're going to listen to people who live here, vote here, and pay taxes here 365 days a year, pay Iowa income taxes, and that are going to vote for these politicians. They're going to pay attention to them first. And that should be that way for any state. And that's the reality. You're not going to, I don't care if you like it or not. They're also not going to pay much attention to you because there's enough guys like you that are ticked off about Iowa's limitations or this or that. And I'm not saying I disagree with them. I'd be ticked too on some of the things. Um, but there's enough guys that are like, well, I'll just move there. And I was going, we
Great.
win.
Yeah.
This is the greatest thing because people with money that want to contribute to the economy, that want to pay our income taxes, that aren't going to come here and just suck off the system, that are going to be great citizens for the state, people who own small businesses, people who are ambitious, they're going to move here.
Hmm.
And because we had tight regulations, that's why they're moving here because we have a good quality experience. So the state of Iowa is smiling. And I honestly don't blame them. I mean, it's a great model. Now, who's the loser there? The loser is Ohio, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Kansas, where they don't limit any of this. And all the guys that are like, dag nab Iowa, you're not going to change. I'm going to go to these other states. And Iowa goes, this isn't me. This is Iowa. They're going, okay, go to the other states. And all these other states are just getting another influx of people. They're
Hmm.
just going to get more inundated. And
Yes.
I'm warning them. I'm warning all of them. Do you understand what's coming for you? Do you understand how many people are heading your way? Your residents will have nowhere to hunt. Um, so again, just circles right back to square one. Fix your broken states. You know.
Yes.
And well, why do you say that? Is there some hidden motivation for you? No, not at all. Not at all. I want to see other states be a good quality experience. I want to see other states not hemorrhage hunters. I want to see more kids get into hunting. I genuinely do. The guys that are like, I want less people hunting. You got your wish. I don't want that at all. I want more people into it
Hmm.
because the more people that get into hunting, they're going to be better members of society. They're going to have great experiences. They're going to have the memories that I've seen throughout my life, all the blessings it's given me. And, for being a city boy that knew nothing about hunting, had I not got into hunting, who knows what I would have got into? Probably bad stuff. Um, it's a great thing. So don't ever wish that there was less hunters and less kids got into hunting because, and I'll give you another quick point. Hunters take probably the best care of the land and environment of any group. I've been in every sector of agriculture as far as regular farming, organic farming. My grandpa's an organic farmer. Cattle, I've seen rotational grazing. I've seen I've seen different whatever orchards, agroforestry, and I do a lot of these stuff. I've been involved with them. I've had them on my land. Um, I see what people with cattle oftentimes, the majority of the time, do to their land. Hey, there should be 50 cows out there. We put 500, and the land is absolutely destroyed. Hunters take the best quality care of the land and the environment of any group. Farmers, um, organic farmers, down the list. Hunters are the best stewards of the land out there, period. It's the best thing for the environment. It's the best thing for the ecosystem. And it's the best thing for the future generations. It's the best thing for our soil health. There's all these other things people don't think of. The more, and I'd say this, And I don't mean like hunters gobble up land so nobody can go out there. And I understand that's a byproduct. But somebody's going to limit access to the land anyway, even if it's a farmer. The more hunters that own the land is actually better for the environment and better for our future. And the more hunters that actually own the land, there'll actually be more quality deer to hunt because, you look at a piece of ground where they run cows on it and it's degraded. There might be, say there's five bucks that live on that parcel. If you put a hunter there and do things, get things far more balanced and create better habitat, instead of $5, there might be 15 or 20. So, it's really better for everybody that hunters own land and that more hunters are involved in the sport. And if we lose hunters, man, it's not good for anything. It really
Mhm.
isn't. And partially people are like, well, they're going to take away my opportunities for these more hunters. Can't think that way.
Mm. Yeah, it's a conundrum. It's not really a conundrum because it's like it's easy to say fix your states.
Oh, it's
And
easy to say that. That
yeah,
blowhard,
hard
he's saying
hard to
fix your
execute.
own state. No, it's
Yeah,
very hard.
yeah.
It's very hard, but uh, it's a heck of a lot easier than a lot of other changes that we've made that have been great. Like whatever. I mean, I could come up with some weird, like Trump getting rid of NAFTA. You'll never get rid of NAFTA. That's a huge trade agreement between different countries. And he got rid of that and fixed that. I mean, the stuff he fixed was incredible. Um, and or even the VA. I used to work in the medical field. I'd be at the VA all the time. It was a disaster. They fixed the VA substantially. That's a huge obstacle to fix, and we were knocking things out quickly if we
Mhm.
want to. That are huge obstacles. We can't fix deer hunting. We can go to the moon. We can go to outer space. We can't fix deer hunting. We can't make it be just somewhat decent quality. Really?
Yeah.
We're that inept to people. We're that incompetent that we can't fix deer hunting. Sure, we can. If you can, and my response to that is, if you have a dozen guys in a certain state that get organized, yes, you can fix it. It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be guaranteed. And if you have 12 goals, you're not going to get all 12, and you're going to lose some things. But to say you can't advance it at some level is a absolute misconception.
Mhm. I like that. Man. Well, let me ask you this real quick, and we'll wrap up the this side of it. But 20 years from now, deer hunting gonna be better or worse?
Depends on the people. If they fix their own system, if we fix our own house, we get more. All the things we've discussed. Clearly, it will be better. If we keep going down the exact same path and we keep listening to the same stupid people, sorry for saying that like that, but the same stupid arguments, rather, that's a better way to put it,
Mhm.
we will be worse. And in 20 years, if we keep listening to these stupid arguments that say, well, you can't change this, and because it's been like this, it has to stay like this, and people are too stubborn, and da da da, the hunters are changing, their psychology is changing, their mindset's changing, and there's more information now, like what people are listening to, where they're like, yeah, I know that. Just like all the people that know Missouri's rifle during the, everybody knows it.
Mhm.
Everybody now. 20 years ago, wow, who knows? I mean, it can't change it. People know now. They have the information. So if we keep going down the same road, we will look, and people, a lot of people can't get their mind around it. So I'll illustrate it very quickly. But we will look very, very much like Africa and Europe. And somebody's like, well, what do you mean? What's Africa and Europe like? Because nobody understands this stuff. I talk to a lot of people from South Africa, a lot. And I was visiting with one a month ago, and I said, I was just hanging out with one that had a work visa, and says, yeah, I work on a lot of these hunting operations in South Africa. I said, okay, say I'm a poor guy in South Africa and I want to hunt. Can I hunt? You can't hunt. If you don't have lots of money, you do not hunt. I said, well, what do you mean? They said, well, all the land is divided up, and mainly it's all high fenced. It's all high fence. And then you got to pay to go into there. I'm like, wait. It's all high fence? They're like, oh, yeah. They're all hunting operations. So you pay to play. So you're wealthy. or you save up enough money to go hunting in a high fence. I says, all high fence? Well, if it's not high fence, you couldn't control it. And the outside people who are the poor people, they'd shoot all the animals and they still try and sneak out there and shoot all the animals anyway and poach them. I mean, it's a huge problem out there. And that's a lot of places in Africa are like that. It's all pay to play.
Mhm.
In Europe, it's all pay to play as well. A lot of it's high fence. A lot of it's, families have had this for generations and it's so expensive. I mean, yeah, you don't go like knock on doors there. So that's what we'll be. We're heading there. It'll be like knock on doors. I remember my grandpa told me that back in 2024. He used to knock on doors. Isn't that crazy? They'll be telling stories about that.
You think it could
It's
happen that
it's
fast?
becoming non-existent.
You think it could
Knocking
happen
on
to
doors,
Do you think it could happen in that type of model could if there's no intervention, no change?
it will.
50 years, 100 years?
Oh, for sure. For sure. 50 years from now, it'll be all pay to play.
Mhm.
Now, I mean, we have far more land, not necessarily in Africa, but I mean, the amount of like Iowa, if Iowa was the target, oh, I mean, I this whole place could be high fence operations. We have such little amount of habitat in Iowa. And here's one example I'll illustrate my point with. 20 years ago, you never heard the word, well, granted, you were probably too young, but even 10, you never heard the word high fence your neighbor, did you?
No.
I'm going to high fence my neighbor. Do you think everybody's heard that nowadays? I'm going to high fence my neighbor?
Anyone that owns a farm, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we all have heard that term, good, bad, or indifferent. We've heard that term. And I hear it constantly now, good, bad, or indifferent. And there's two sides of it. You're a jerk for high fencing your neighbor. And the other guy's saying, yeah, but do you understand why I'm doing it? It's an absolute nightmare. I mean, here's all the problems I have. So I hear both sides. I'm not taking a position on it. Okay. This is just me saying it how it is, calling a ball a strike. Just, I'm just explaining why it happens. So you get all these differentiations between neighbors on their goals, and a neighbor destroys the ground, in one person's terms, and a lot of times it's accurate. I'm trying to get at least a buck to maturity, and they're shooting everything. So you high fence your neighbor. Now we're hearing that in increasing terms, and I don't like that we're hearing it in increasing terms. It's a reaction to what's going on, though. What's going to happen is guys are going to go, this won't happen the next 5, but it will happen in the next 20, for sure the next 30. They're going to go, okay, I'm going to high fence 2 sides of my neighbor. Then this neighbor is going to be bad. I'm going to high fence 3 sides. Going on a lot in Texas right now, and people don't realize that. They'll high fence 3 sides. And eventually, guys are like, man, I hate high fence hunting. I hate it. I'm just going to high fence 4 sides. And I'm going to make it look natural. I'm going to make it look like um, I'm hunting the deer that I did way back in 2024, when it was great. I'm going to make that experience. It's just going to have fencing around it. And I'm not saying everything will be high fence, but the amount of high fence operations you see around the country is going to grow like this.
Mm.
Now you have the government, which gets in the way, that makes it very difficult, good, bad, or indifferent. They make it harder to high fence things, and because of disease and all sorts of things. But more guys are going to do that because they're going to say, "Wait, I have to pull my hair out. I have to spend hundreds of thousands or millions to try and grow mature deer now." And the harder people make it for me, these guys are just going to say, I'm going to find a way to do it. And
Mhm.
eventually they're going to go through all the options on how to have a mature deer. And I don't fault them for doing this. I want to have a mature deer. And then eventually they're just going to go, I never thought I'd do this, but I'm just going to high fence all 4 sides, and I'm going to hunt a high fence. I don't care what the regulations are. I don't care what seasons, what weapons they want to implement, the doe quotas. I'm set. I don't have to worry about all these things. I don't want to hunt on a high fence. This is me giving my
Mhm.
opinion. I don't want to hunt on a high fence. I don't want to see high fences all over the place. But I'm saying I understand why people are going to do that. And if we don't fix the trajectory of where the place we're going, it will be all high fences. Mark my word. This maybe will be stuck in a little time capsule in history. We can look at this in 30 years,
Hopefully you're wrong.
um, and hopefully people are like, no, some states change. We got things right. Um, we made it a better quality experience for everybody across the whole Midwest. I hope that's what happens, but if we don't, that's what will happen.